Hi, Stan with 3D PT, and recently a video has been coming across on the house printing and 3D printing forums about an actual old antique technology for what is we would consider early cement 3D printing. And did a little bit of a deep dive on this. Turns out this was actually kind of a fluke project, and it's kind of a shame that it never got further. So I'll talk about this more in a minute. So it's important to remember that post-World War II, there was actually a big housing boom. And a lot of different companies were trying out different things. So this is where you have prefabricated homes, mobile homes, and you also have the Levittown developments that were houses made in a day. And all those were done with pretty much huge companies of contractors and laborers that would literally just pounce on a site and just crank out houses, still stick-built or traditional houses, that would be built in a day. So let's go to the video and actually review this. So there's two videos published by the Urschel company. One's black and white, one's color. So I'll show the black and white one because this shows a lot more about the original machine. And the second one shows the machine at work, but doesn't go into as many details about the machine. So how does this impact 3D house printing today? Actually, this machine shows that not only was it possible to design a robust machine to print even a small shelter, I think with some changes, they were able to do another design, because this version here shows a straight wall. So it'd be interesting seeing how they did that, whether they had some sort of telescoping support on that pole or did a ring or something else. So they were capable of doing traditional square houses when they printed this back in 1947. And it's kind of a shame that Urschel didn't go anywhere else with this after they made some buildings for their company. Because I think with the construction boom that was happening in the 40s and 50s from post-World War II, this could have been really the groundbreaking technology for house design. Now, I understand that Urschel has made their fortunes on food processing, and that's great business for them. I've reached out to them, sent them a couple emails with questions. Haven't heard back yet, but it would definitely be interesting to find out, was this just a prototype thing for their company to build on and test, or did the project fall through, or what happened? Now, I do understand that the founder and inventor of this, William Urschel, died right after this technology was tested. And so maybe that kind of fell through the cracks for the company. I'd be interested in finding out. And I'll link to Josh Goroch's video as well. And he talks a lot more about the patent work that went into this. So all the patents for this printer type of house machine have expired. And it would be interesting maybe going back with a few tweaks. I'd like to put a cement pump and maybe explore ways to control the y-axis so you could do square houses as well as round and other shapes. But what I like about this is that the Urschel machine uses traditional cement. So you're not doing fancy geopolymers or special lavacrete or proprietary cements that haven't gone through all the engineering testing of traditional cement. This will help you get through a lot of building codes and coding difficulties, because you're not trying to test new cement. You're going with what's already proven. The other thing I liked is, even as a manual version where someone was just spoon feeding that all the time, that still only took about 2 or 3 people to really work as a site. So a full-size house probably would take about 3 to 4 people doing it manually. Um, Probably 2 to 3 if you had it automated with a cement pump, and maybe some other automations like stepper motors or other kind of controls. But even a low-cost version like this that's manual would be a boon for cement for doing things like outbuildings, tool sheds, all those kind of thing, outbuildings, where you don't need to have an expensive setup. Um, so I'm going to do a part 2 video where I look at the second video that Urschel published on this technology. This first video here shows a lot more behind the scenes and how the machine works. Second one's more of a promotional one, but it also shows some other technology. So if you like what you see, please like and comment and subscribe, and I'll look at more. I'll see if I can find other interesting 3D printing technologies from history. And if you know of any, please leave a comment below and let me look. The links for the original Urschel video, I'll post them below, as well as the Wikipedia links that I cited. But yeah, who knew 3D printing was happening back in 1947? So while this machine is running, you notice that it's hopper fed, and so someone actually has to stand there and shovel cement into this. And in the articles, it mentions that this is just regular cement. There's no mortar needed. And the other parts of the machine, you notice here on the back, there's all these tampers that are actually pressing the cement into the shape. And the other cool thing here is actually this groove here. So this is actually lays out a ribbon that has a tongue and groove joint in it. So that actually compensates for a lot of the issues that cement printers have had where they just lay down a full layer and it sausages or falls over. And Jared Gross actually did a great video about the patent work on this. Now, the patents that Urschel has filed have all expired. And I think actually with some revisions, this could actually be a great basis for a house printer here. And this part, we can see how it's basically just balanced on the end of a long arm. And this is a polar printer in that the center pole is controls the z-axis. And you can see here the workers are again feeding everything in. We've got one guy here mixing the cement and just feeding it in all the time continuously. And there you can also see all these tampers that are tamping down the cement into a solid line. And it looks like the cement mix is actually fairly dry to be coming out powder like that. Which again is not something you see with all the contemporary cement printers on the market now. So looking at the machine now, pretty much you have to have a crew of people making cement. And in this style, they just scoop cement constantly into the machine. It actually shows later on it has a cutoff if it runs out of cement. So it'll actually stop running, which means that they've pretty much figured out probably the most common error. The other thing you notice is there's a disc here that's spinning and constantly troweling that line that goes around. So it also hides that sausage shape extrusion that you see in a lot of contemporary printers. Now, yes, you could put a cement pump on this easily, but I think actually part of the attraction of this is that you can run it as a manual unit. But in the future, probably a cement pump, as much as people hate them, are probably going to be the way to go. So we've all had times where our 3D printers have jammed, broken filament, run out of filament, and they'll just keep running because we're upstairs not paying attention. And the part that impressed me on this is that there's some sort of mechanism, and I guess it might just be a simple pressure switch, where if it runs out of cement, it stops. And you see where the guy takes a break here, and it pauses, but then he dumps some in. So it looks like there's some sort of just switch or lever that just tells the machine, has the machine move forward when there's a certain amount of cement in it. So they made it idiot-proof for this kind of design. Now, even with the cement pump, I'd still like to have a head that stops like that, even on my conventional desktop printers. But this was in 1947. So the amount of design and engineering that went even into this prototype is just incredible. And here they're actually having where the door ends. So they've got the one guy standing there and he's just sticking a trowel up in it. And then they're plugging the machine, moving it over. And here's how they change the layer line is they manually just hoist up layer one step on the z-axis. So instead of having a step motor, they've actually done what's similar to what I've seen with a couple other demonstration printers where you manually move the z-axis up and down, which, saves you on doing all the E-step calculations and Z settings and all that. But it would also definitely drop down the cost of your printer if you have a manual setup like this. So here's the great part about this video is they actually show the inside mechanics. So here they've taken off the hopper. You can see the two wheels on the outside that act as your trowels. And these three kind of spoon-shaped things are your tampers. And when they turn on the machine, those tampers push out the mix after it's fed out through the front of the hopper. Or no, this is the back of the machine. There's the front, so they're feeding into the hopper. It's coming out here. Tampers are knocking it down and getting troweled on the side. And I actually kind of like this flat layer look too. Now the great thing is you haven't seen much in terms of formwork. So right here they just use conventional boxes that they stack up to make door frames. But so far that's been the only real framework they've used. So here they have the same ideas as contemporary 3D printers in that to lay the windows, you pretty much just have to stick a board across the top of them. But even then, it's a simple operation for what they are doing. And so once again, you have this guy standing on top just feeding in like crazy. And they're able to totally bridge that window. And it looks like at some point they actually stuck a rebar ring into this. And they're just using some liquid cement to top that off. It'd be interesting to see how much they've actually reinforced. And it looks like right here they have a little scoop or trowel on the front to help tamp that cement in as it also lays on top. And you can see with one guy just working his butt off, able to do pretty much a lot of the wall work on this. So here we have a film that shows the nicer days of construction work before OSHA. So to do this, the guy's just standing there dropping in buckets of cement. And it looks like he's only doing about a 1 gallon bucket at a time. So it's definitely a short fill. and just trying to do that. So, and wonderful little supports on the sawhorse stands. In 1947, the Urschel Laboratories company in Varspalo, Indiana, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, actually had a prototype cement printing machine, and they called it the Urschel Wall Building Machine. Now, everything I could find on this has been pretty limited because it looks like Urschel is actually known even today as a food processor company. But in 1947, they actually made this machine to print a few experimental houses, and they actually used it to construct some of the Urschel factory buildings. And in looking at the Wikipedia link, I found this article from the Vedette Messenger that actually showed probably one of their warehouse buildings, because this one isn't in the video. And it goes on to talk about this. And finally, the last article I could find in the Vedette Messenger mentions the Urschel Wall Building Machine only in maybe a paragraph. So in this article from 26 July 1950, it talks about an open house to celebrate William Urschel, who is actually the founder of the company. Yeah, so William Urschel. He started the company in 1910, and he made things like a walking tractor and a continuous cement mixer. And it talks about that machine only briefly in a paragraph at the bottom of this article. Again, the Urschels are known for all their food processing and harvesting equipment. And I think it's really kind of a shame that this machine just never really got past the experimental stage, according to them. Because I think even if it had some limited capabilities at the time, it still could have been a groundbreaker for all the housing booms that were going on at that time. So for this design, they pretty much just did a straight tube with some castle battlements as decor along the top. And I'll actually do a part 2 video where we look at the other video on this, and we'll look at kind of the improvements and tweaks in their technology. But it's ever since I saw this, it's always incredible that this was done in 1947. And the idea of even 3D printing wasn't even around then. Because Star Trek didn't come out until much later, and the idea of a replicator or something that could add material to make an object, when the entire world at the time was, here's a block of metal, mill it out. And so this took 3 people to run the machine and feed it. And you'll see in the other video they do a quirky edit on it, and they have a little more fun in their second video. And so here's the finished one. They actually turn it into a tractor shed, but with a nice coat of white paint and a barn door. This is just a traditional roof. It would be interesting to see if they use like a Quonset hut or something else, or just a regular roof for that. So they had fun, and I think that's one of Urschel's other tractor attachments. And of course, this is some classic film editing special effects there, as well as the stop motion ending.